Do you ever dream about being in two places at once, or maybe 3 or 4 or 8 places, or being connected to everything all at once? All the things that nourish every fibre of your being? Welcome to Series 3 of Dream Space with me, Gemma Kearney from Factory International. I'm a broadcaster, that's what I'm known for, but I'm a creator, an art lover, and I've always been fascinated by how our dreams shape our waking lives. The way we dream reflects the way we live. Dreams can be spaces to breathe and to exist outside of our daily demands, and although we dream alone, I argue, do we? Because we all dream. When our dreams form together to become a collective vision for a future, then there's a serious power in that. That's why on Dream Space, we invite some of the leading creative thinkers of our time to take us into their dreams across time, space, and species, and tell us how their dream space drifts into their lives. We've got an amazing series lined up for you with someone who is very used to changing form in his work, from people to animals to the living and the dead, and across paper, theatre and film.
All I'm about is trying to convey to anyone that will listen what freedom is and should be, which is why there is no distinction between activism and art for me, because none of us are free until everyone is free.
Max Porter is an award-winning writer whose debut Grief is a Thing with Feathers was published in 2015. Told from the perspective of a father, his sons and a crow, it has been updated into a play and now a film starring Benedict Cumberbatch. He has written about a village populated with the living and the dead in Lanny, and has also explored the painter's final days in The Death of Francis Bacon. Max has also written a screenplay inspired by his 4th book, Shy, which will be distributed by Netflix under the title Steve in September. He's the chair of the International Booker Prize Committee, an associate artist of the South Bank Centre, and the writer-in-residence at HMP Aylstoke. Let's get into Max Porter's dream space. I'm really ready for this. How are you feeling about it, Max?
I'm good. I'm ready to dial up my lucid receptiveness and invite you in.
Is it something that you usually share? Do people come here often?
I talk about the contents of this place and the ideas attached to this place a lot, but I don't talk about my dreams very much because I'm married to someone who is almost allergic to people telling her their dreams. She's like, I'll stop you there. Sorry, can't bear it when people tell me their dreams. Quite rude, but I kind of get it. I do sort of get it. But yeah, the where I'm going to take you today is a place that fascinates me or across my life, socially, spiritually, politically, everything.
So you've got a very specific sense of what this place is. Can you describe to us in a welcoming sense where we've landed and who we might be with? Are we alone?
Well, to begin with, it's very straightforward. You're in the woods. You have left your home or the city you live in or the community of other human beings, and you've gone into the woods. And when you go into the woods, you go into heaven. So at the beginning, you feel alone and you feel at peace. You are surrounded by green chaos, but to begin with, what you're struck by is an incredible sense of peace.
Why is it peace that you've decided upon for your dream space? What is it about this particular feeling that is alluring or compelling?
I mean, you're talking to a lifelong pacifist, so I'm on a hunt for peaceful encounters, peaceful ways of thinking, peaceful modes of being, discourses outside of that of violence, inequality, injustice, aggression. And the kind of ultimate permission giver for thinking about that would be the woods. You know, many of the stories of our Western literary canon come from the woods, the fairy tales come from the woods. All our templates for thinking about interconnectivity and community are borrowed from, increasingly, from the scientific and, you know, way back, the indigenous relationship between living things, human and non-human, between living persons. So there's a kind of wealth of actual and metaphorical ways in which we can think about being in the woods and what it means for a human to be in a wood. Also, now we know what trees are emitting that are good for us or affect our blood pressure or our state of mind or our stress levels or whatever. But way before that even, I'm just speaking to the child in you. You're in the woods, you know, that means you're away from the school bully. That means you're away from gender, class, race. You are simply among other living things. And then you realize your capabilities as a living thing. You haven't even started listening yet. So that's where I want us to begin, is realizing that we can begin listening.
I love how you talk about the juxtaposition between green and nature as chaos. So things are living, there is wonder, there is mysticism, there is truth, there is earth. But we as human are in this forest initially alone and at peace. How do you think that works in contrast, our connection with nature?
So even to enter the forest, you are already an intruder. You have already killed countless thousands of little things. Every step you've taken, you are a pollutant. So what I'm asking the visitor to this dream space to do is reconcile themselves to different opportunities for behavior. Are we going to just take? Are we going to just enjoy this space and it benefit us as visitors, or is there a way that we can establish some kind of reciprocal relationship with this space and be indebted to it, even as we are humbled by it or intimidated or lost in it? This is an animist proposition straight away. When we enter this forest space, we are one of countless interconnected living things. We're not the boss anymore, and we're certainly not here to extract, exploit, enrich ourselves. Now, the dream space nudges itself forward slightly, right? Because what I want to suggest is that when you enter this space, the best analogy I can think of for this is, because you know, I don't want to be like, we could do this with AI, or we could do this with science, or we could do this. I want to do this with the spirit and the brain. I want to do this as our ancestors would be able to do this. But the best analogy I can think of is, did you ever see that advert for like Jif or something where they're in the kitchen and it's black and white and all the germs are shown up red? Yeah. And that horrified me, like, because I could just imagine little raw chicken prints everywhere or whatever, bogies all over every child in the class, type thing. But basically, that's the kind of God's eye view that I want my guest in the forest to have. That suddenly you can see everything. You get like a Gaia vision, so that you can suddenly see that tree is being fed by that fungal network. That tree is dying of a disease. You can see where that disease has come from. You can see that it's been carried here on a virus. Even more, then it ramps up according to your capabilities to understand it. So you suddenly like, I'm aware that tree is sick, but it is also going to decay and form the nutrient base of that new plant. Or you can see that ash tree, for example, is sick with the ash dieback, but you can see generations back that tree came here as a refugee in the last ice age, and that the tree accepts its sickening and will become something else. You know what I mean? So the whole complex life cycle of every living thing starts to become clear to you. You have a kind of ecstatic supervision when you're in this forest.
So you're the master of the ecology somehow in terms of being able to see it. Not that you can manipulate it, but you have a superpower that to me sounds very psychedelic and quite full on.
Yeah, it would be close to what human beings think they can see with the universe when they're taking ayahuasca or LSD. You get this sudden sense of how everything is linked. But I think it wouldn't be so much in a kind of knowledge is power way. It would be, as I say, like a great humbling. A bit like the ecstatic visions of Hildegard of Bingen or someone like that. Like, you would suddenly understand how irrelevant you are, or an atomic level or chemical level, how the phosphorus in your body is the same as the phosphorus in that stem, or how you just are plant-like. So yeah, basically it's a great big pagan whoosh to begin with when you're in there.
Oh, I like this pagan whoosh. I want to draw out on some of the references slightly. You mentioned that this is an animist stance, a space where we connect to everything around us on a very spiritual level. Can you break down what it means to be an animist?
Different things to different people. You'll meet a hedge druid who takes it very seriously, and it's a slightly organised system of thought for him. For me, it is simply a recognition that other living things outside of humans have personhood and therefore deserve our reverence and our respect, and that we don't know everything. We're not at the tip of science. As every generation fools themselves to think they have the answers, we might not know that the grass is screaming, or that the rivers are crying out for legal rights, or that the ecological disaster is affecting some things more severely than others, because we're not listening. Because unfortunately that's what capitalism has done to us. It's meant that we've got to stop listening. And so really straightforwardly, animism to me is a deep reverential relationship to the living world that sustains us. So when the right-wing press call me a hippie, I'm like, thank you so much. Because it seems to me not only absolutely obvious and logical to be in awe of this incredible gift, this life that sustains us, but also totally practical, because we might survive if we re-engineer our relationship to this planet in terms of, as I say, gratitude, indebtedness, sustainability. Then we might have a chance of carrying on living here. It seems like common sense, as well as access to the infinite, to gratitude. That's how I want you to feel when you're in this forest to begin with. It's just this wave of innate gratitude.
I think that it's easy to be confronted in times of almost a subconscious, deep guilt for where we've got to. And we deal with this guilt or these realizations sometimes as to how we can help in quite brittle ways, like it's like an abstinence perhaps, like I will become a vegan, or like this kind of like lightning bolt effect of I will empower myself to empower the world around me, which I sometimes see as like a moving through an outrage. Because sometimes I feel so outraged by the life that we're all living, being a systematic clusterfuck of stuff which can be really harmful. And I think that this kind of slower, gentler humbling, it's quite confronting to our everyday, because it takes actually time.
Yeah.
If I'm at your forest for the first time and I'm on my knees and I'm in tears and I'm realizing that I actually live so close to nature that it's like in me and that I owe it something, I am interested in how long this dream and liminal space may take and whether time even exists.
You've landed right on it for me. I would suggest that this dream space is outside of human time. When you see people sort of with a placard on a climate march, I'm really interested in marches because this is what we do with our time now, isn't it? We just go on marches. I'm just on a march for Palestine, or on a march for climate, or on a march for the river. And I saw a sign a few years ago and it said, "Save the planet for our children," or whatever. And I was like, that human-centric emphasis on it being for us is wired all wrongly. And so to begin with, I think you're right. We would take the lifespan of a human way out of this. You would become a kind of time traveler. Simultaneously, in the root system of our civilization, way back, as I say, watching a kind of time-lapse video of the movement of seeds and pollens and species across this planet, and you would also be in the minutiae of a second, as water hydrates a human system, or a child touches a leaf for the first time, or whatever. So you'd be liberated from the kind of artificial prison of seconds, hours, days. You need to be nudged through an ecstatic interaction, or through a trauma sometimes, or through grief, which is a sort of superpower in my formulation of it, into a reckoning with these things. And it's like, it's a gift from a shared weather system outside of any of our control. I met this tree in Palestine this year, and it had been very challenging and upsetting few days, obviously, because we were in the occupied West Bank. But we went to see this art centre up in the hills near Ramallah, and there was a tree there, and I've had a leaf of it tattooed on my arm because it was one of the most profound encounters I've ever had. And it's a spring, and people, Sufis or whatever, 5,000 years ago used to worship at this spring. And this tree is one of the oldest trees in Palestine. It's like 3,500 years old. And it's looked at from across the hill by a gun tower. The settlements are... people come and trash it and stuff. But standing underneath it at sunset, I was almost physically knocked over by the depth of my wonderment. Way outside even the time spans of civilization, even outside the birth and fall of major religions, major systems of thought. I felt simultaneously absolutely irrelevant and utterly held in its gaze. It was like made me miss my beloved Quaker grandmother. It was like being held by her affection. She adored me, this tree adored me, and I adored it, beyond any linguistic comprehension I could ever have. It was an epiphany of the deepest and purest sort. If it's okay with you, having established this dream space, I want to suggest that there's a kind of upgrade if you want it.
Take me there. Tell me.
Do you want it?
Tell me more.
Well, this is where my work as a novelist comes into it, really. There's great relationships, I think, when we're thinking about literature and we're thinking about the forest. But my suggestion for my dream space is that when you are in this wood and you are, as it were, well, you're free. You could be doing a bit of the old forest bathing. You could be climbing a tree. You could be on your knees weeping because of the closeness of this relationship to those in your creative and emotional life. You might be falling in love. You might be reeling off an apology in your head, whatever. You're free. So maybe there's a sort of button you could press, or maybe it's internal. Maybe it's just a flick of the switch in your heart or whatever. Or maybe you go and embrace the saddest looking, gangliest looking tree in the forest, like in Indiana Jones when he chooses the right chalice, right? You go to your tree and you follow your heart, and you are of course correct because that is your tree, and you hold it. And at that moment, when the kind of heartwood and the human heart are speaking to one another invisibly at a subatomic level, the forest changes to your species. So suddenly you are surrounded by other human beings. And there is no distinction between the living and the dead. So you are in the wood wide web of whatever you are. And you realize, this is why it's such a turn on for a novelist, you suddenly see everything. So for example, I would see the cancer that will kill me coming slowly towards me through the genetic network that connects me to my great-great-grandfather. I would see my 19th cousin far removed or ever biting his thumbnail. I would see, we would see the illusion of race science instantly made clear to us because we are all growing in the same soil. We would suddenly see the impact of humor over 19 generations. We would understand the relationship between ghosts and the living. We would suddenly see that everyone is here. All the billions of people that have lived on this planet are still here. They walk among us, we walk among them. And it would be, I think it's entirely possible to do this work for ourselves. And I think the impact of someone experiencing this dream space when they go back out into the world to interact with people of all different ages, creeds, right, would just be phenomenal. Because they would have within them this peace which comes from having seen what the soil can see. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. All ego disappears, all desire to enrich ourselves or bicker with one another or enslave or compete disappears.
Do you think that the unknown is one of our living greatest fears? The fact that we don't know how or when we're going to die, or we perhaps can't put into a kind of logical understanding that we are all of a mixed heritage in some way and that we share so much more than we don't, or that the most racist person might even have a great granddad who was black, or like this idea that we don't actually know, I think keeps us quite scared and therefore quite angry and quite shutting off. I think because we see the unknown as a trauma, perhaps. And in this space, if I'm suddenly in this wood full of everything that at points in life, perhaps I've tried to run away from, like a truth, like a huge forest of truth, you think that will be an awakening of liberation for me?
Well, I think what it will be is so colossal that you won't have an apparatus to deal with it, and that's fine. Like that's why I'm always like, my favorite people in this world are midwives and palliative carers. They get it, and as a result, they're the most bullshit-free people you're ever going to meet, and they tell the best jokes. They see it. They see us at our extremity. So I think you'd quite quickly be calm. I think what you'd feel this incredible weightlessness, which will be denial falling off. The need to have the next Apple Watch. These things which are part of what Brazilian shamans would call like the merchandise society, they would seem suddenly laughably irrelevant because you would be connected to. So, I'm not suggesting you would come out and become one of those sort of self-righteous like those people that have like, oh, unless you've been to Thailand, you haven't lived. You wouldn't be like that because you would be emanating such peace, such truth, and such, you would be fitting inside your own skin as a plant or a human, or the thing is that we would offer this to any species, the blackbirds and the I love the idea that you'd show the dogs and they'd be like, what? Like, my dog is like, I'm related to a spaniel. That there is this sort of that we can do it. It doesn't need to have, this is one of the problems with doctrine, is it doesn't need to have a sting in the tail. It doesn't need to be a system that punishes you for not getting it or not being obedient to it. It can just be as light as a gift. Like in my last book, Shy, this kid this depressed teenage junglist goes to try and drown himself in the pond and doesn't, because he just has quite a quick and relatively banal chat with a dead badger. And people have always said to me like, oh, it's like this huge mystical. No, it's not. It's just as quick and easy as a little change in the air. So I think in a weird way, that moment when you hug the tree and all the revelations of the forest come beaming back to you as human, and you get to see your great-grandmother and your great-great-grandson not yet born and all this and all life and death. I don't think it's a huge, heavy thing. And then you come back down and you go run upstairs and you just say to your kids, come on, let's go and let's have a hug. Forget about your homework.
If we are so aware here in this dream space of everything, does it hurt?
Yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way. In the time we're living in, how many of your messages in your WhatsApp to your friends and colleagues, it says, I'm just feeling so heartbroken I can hardly function. If you're not feeling heartbroken, then you're not paying attention. So yeah, necessarily a painful space and a painful reckoning. But we have the tools. The human heart is the tool. We're ready to do this work.
Does technology have a place in this dream space? Does it push us forward?
I'm going to say it's not, no. I think the psychic technology of the ancients and nothing else. They were miles ahead of us anyway. We're only just beginning to work out how right they were. I just read a book about Irish people from 1,000 years ago who worked out all medicinal usages for trees and herbs that science is only just finding out about now in labs. They washed their face with dew every morning and they looked amazing.
Yeah,
they're like 100-year-old women with not a single wrinkle because they just washed their face in the dew. And like now Neutrogena are like, let's get what's in the dew. Leave it in the dew. It's in the dew already.
Seriously, you can get an Irish facial by just putting your face in moss.
Yeah.
An Irish friend of mine told me that on a walk. We were just like, feels so good. Do you find it hard to encapsulate this sense of wonder in language, or now so many books in and projects, etc., you actually are able to sort of act as a channel for the trees that you love or the dogs that you feel connected to? You know, is literature a way of being able to bring people into different dream spaces?
I mean, when I read the poetry by the poets I love most in this world, I would say, yeah, there's an argument to be made for literature attaining or helping us access. But ultimately, no, I think music is the only thing that can really do it. I think music is the highest form. Like, yes, you could sit in front of a Rothko for quite a long time or an Agnes Martin, and you could get quite close to what I'm describing here with the forest. But I think that music takes you there very, very quickly. As close as we get to God, I think, as mortals, and it's no accident, therefore, that the way I feel when I listen to the music that does that to me is very similar to how I feel when I'm alone in the woods. All my performance is gone. All my self-consciousness is gone. My self-awareness is split, divided. I'm receiving rather than putting out. I've found my place in the order of things again, which is to be almost invisible, my membrane completely passable, things flowing through me, you know. So yeah, I mean, I want to keep working at language because I think it has miraculous capabilities, but generally, no, I think I need the collaborative energy with other forms to get there. Yeah, which is one of the reasons why I'm so obsessed with art spaces, because I don't want to tell our young, you know, this is what my work's about these days. Don't shut the youth club. Don't tell a kid he can't be a musician because there isn't a saxophone. Explain to the child that he can be a musician by drumming on his own legs if he has to. Like, you know, there is no, these silos we've erected between forms, between different types of cultural output, they're the market. They're just power exercising itself, usually for purposes of cruelty. All I'm about is trying to convey to anyone that will listen what freedom is and should be, which is why there is no distinction between activism and art for me, because none of us are free until everyone is free.
It makes a lot of sense, and I love this idea that we explore in your dream the meshing or the understanding of the interconnectivity of form and species like it's an artistic space. You know, you described it so
Yeah.
beautifully. It's colorful. Like it's like the trees are offering our wonder, but at the same time, can we hear it? Like, how do we feel it in our bodies? If I'm walking towards my tree and I'm going to like press myself against that in a big hug, do we hear it? The way you spoke about sound was like very evocative.
My hope for it is that you feel something like, you know, when you hear the call to prayer or something and you get a kind of full body, you know, like when I first hear the opening notes of Goreki's sorrowful songs, I'm like, it vibrates up from my ankles through my spleen up into the top of my head. I'm thinking that's the bare minimum that you're feeling as you approach this tree, right? Because I don't want to be like evangelical about this or missionary about this, but I do think, and obviously we're all thinking about this a lot at the moment with these fucking Reform Party councillors popping up everywhere who have just, it's not even like they're far right politicians. They don't have a clue what they're about. Most of them are just chances. You know, they're just keyed into the most polluted discourse they can possibly find because it's a grab at power. Anyway, my thought would be, you know, this is always the same as, could you put Priti Patel on a dinghy in the middle of the channel and make her realise that's not a good way to treat a human being? So could you take someone that is literally saturated with bigotry, xenophobia, racism, poisonous discourses pumping through them, perhaps at no fault of their own, right, and put them in this situation? Would it be enough to, no pun intended, reform them? And I wonder, right, because what am I suggesting that they would therefore share my politics? No, not at all. I don't convert them to my way of thinking, whatever. I would only hope for them to experience this sort of cellular wobble, this tingling of the inner self that is a true recognition of the nature of things. I'd bet my bottom dollar that they would then leave that room and no longer wish to go about their business in the way they were doing. I think they might go back and be a little bit quiet and a little bit blissed out and offer their hand to someone fallen in the street instead of trying to stamp on them. That would be my bet. But that's not the function of the dream space. It's a non-doctrinaire space, you know?
Do you feel like we are connected, whether we like it or not? So you spoke quite a lot about family. You spoke about your great grandma and your own kind of real life epiphany, like feeling her when you were on a trip. And I'm interested in that. Are we able to peel back whatever's hurt us or the journeys that our lives have taken us and actually remind ourselves of something that's actually intergenerational?
Gemma, I would say that is the most urgent job of human beings now on this planet. If we are to survive, that is the job. To recognise that when I am upset about 20,000 dead children, because they are my children, why on earth do I need to be the actual biological father of a child to love that child unconditionally? What the fuck has gone wrong that would be the case? Why do I need to have a disabled child to care about other disabled children, or to have suffered from some kind of leukemia in order to raise money for leukemia? Why does empathy only exist at that least ambitious leap of direct one-to-one? Why are we not, all of us, broadening, deepening, widening our potential as caregivers? Like, that is literally the key to our survival on this planet. If we just build walls and figurative and literal walls, metaphorical walls between us, it's a death wish. It's suicide. I think it is urgent. This is what I mean. Are the epiphanies of the dream space or not? It seems to me nothing more than common sense. I draw a lot from my Quaker grandmother, or from the love of my three boys, or from the insights that I've got from my dog, I struggled being a dog owner, but he's really taught me a lot about non-linguistic communication. You know, it's really interesting to have a non-verbal Bezzy as someone that uses language for a living. I'm fascinated in it. But what is the point of learning any of these lessons if I'm not utilizing them at the far reach, you know? I don't think there's anything to do with the narrow moral compass with morality or politics. I think it's just pure necessity now in the time of ecological emergency. Maybe this is how the dream space ends, that the great regreening has commenced and we can watch this planet reclaim these spaces away from the human, and then maybe the humans all fade and fizzle out and disappear and are replaced by the green chaos of what was here before us and what will outlive us.
Whoa. I am just coming back to reality after this ethereal melting pot of references where nature meets human life. I love that. What a thinker. And what a dream. What a treat that we all got to experience it. I'm Gemma Cairney. Thank you for listening. Join us again next time for a wander through another artist's dream space. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. It's very important to us. It keeps us thriving. Share it with everyone you know. Put it in a link on any of your social media. Give it to your chosen community in your different ways of communicating with them. It really does mean a lot to us. And if you can't wait until the next episode, then head to Factory International's website to find out more. There's loads of creative content on Factory Plus. And if this is your first ever trial of Dreamspace and our universe that we're creating, amazing. Congratulations and thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time. But before that, if you need to treat yourself and you want to get some quality dreaming in, then get involved in one of our previous episodes. There's loads and loads to choose from. Dreamspace was hosted by me, Gemma Cairney, and this episode was produced by Emily Dix, with sound design by Solomon King and music by Andrew P.M. Hunt. The executive producer is Dan Jackson, and this is a reduced listening production for Factory International, curated by Scott Simoniti and Alex Mannion Jones. Until next time.